السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. محاضرتنا بعنوان Connective Tissue Part 4. Connective tissue proper, which include loose connective tissue and dense connective tissue. Loose connective tissue, also called irregular connective tissue, this type of tissue characterized by its most widely distributed found in the body. This tissue characterized by abundant ground substance and loose arrangement of fibers. إذا الصفة اللي يتميز بها اللوز إنه المكون الرئيسي هو الجراوند سبستانس اللي يكون large amount ونلاحظ less number of cells, less number of fibers. This fiber characterized by loose in arrangement تكون مفككة. The collagen fibers scattered throughout the ground substance which are present in bundle running in different direction. هذه هي الكولاجين bundles اللي لونها يكون وردي عريضة. هذه distributed in the loose connective tissue arranged in different direction. The elastic fibers are branching, forming network within the ground substance. هذه الخطوط اللون داكن هي elastic fibers اللي ذكرنا إنه دائما تكون بشكل single, wavy and branch. فنلاحظها single, not found as bundle, branching to form network within the ground substance. Also there is a small proportion of reticular fibers, لكن هنا ما تظهر لأنه ذكرنا أنه reticular fibers need special staining. In this tissue, there are different types of the cells that found. The most common types of the cells that found in this tissue include fibroblasts. These are fibroblasts, in addition to macrophages, also mast cells that found also numerous in this tissue. The other types of the cells of connective tissue also found in this tissue, which migrate from blood vessels into loose connective tissue. طبعا نلاحظ معظم الخلايا اللي ذكرناها خلايا أنواع الكونكتيف تيشو تقريبا معظمها موجودة in loose connective tissue مثل Adipose cells, leukocytes, plasma cells, and different cells that found in this tissue, but in few numbers. These cells are responsible for inflammation and also an immune response. What are the locations of loose connective tissue? Loose connective tissue found in hypodermis of the skin forms layers that sheath the lymphatic and blood vessels, found around the glands, and found in the mucous membranes that called lamina propria of alimentary canal. من الخصائص اللي يتمتع بها loose connective tissue, it is flexible and not very resistant to stress. إذا يتمتع بمرونة عالية لكنه not very well resistant to stress, it is very well vascularized, where the matrix contains blood vessels and nerve fiber, which supply the cells with oxygen and nutrients. يعتبر اللوس connective tissue من الأنسجة تكون غنية بالأوعية الدموية. What are the functions of loose connective tissue? The function of this tissue is loose backing, support, and nourishment for the structures that associated with this tissue. المجموعة الأخرى من proper connective tissue هو dense connective tissue. It is consists of the same component that found in loose connective tissue, except that it has greater abundance of fiber and fewer cells. إذن هي نفس المكونات بالنسبة المشابهة لللوز، لكن الاختلاف هنا راح يكون إنه بالعكس إنه greater abundance of fibers على حساب less cells, less ground substance. These fibers are close backing, which are mainly collagen fibers, and there is little amount of ground substance. إذا راح نلاحظ إنه الفايبرز هو المكون الرئيسي بالدنس بالمقارنة مع اللوز كونكتيف تيشو. ونلاحظ أيضا أنه معظم هذه الفايبرز هي collagen fibers. This tissue is less flexible and more resistant to stress than loose connective tissue. وأيضا نلاحظ أنه هذا يكون less flexible بالمقارنة مع اللوز، لكن يكون more resistant to stress than loose connective tissue. There are two types of tissue according to the organization of the fibers. These are dense irregular connective tissue and dense regular connective tissue. What's the character feature of dense irregular connective tissue? من اسم المصطلح dense, densely packed of fibers. Irregular, these fiber irregular in distribution. So, the collagen fibers are arranged in bundles. مثل ما نلاحظ هذه البندل oriented in different direction. نلاحظ إنه ترتيب هذه البندلز in different direction without definite orientation، بدون اتجاه معين. Also, elastic fibers found in this tissue and reticular fibers, but found in a few numbers. Mainly numbers, these collagen bundles, which found in different direction. These blood vessels also that found in this tissue. Fibroblasts, the most abundant cells which found in dense irregular connective tissue, and these cells located between the collagen bundles. مثل ما نلاحظ هذه هي الفايبروبلاست اللي تتواجد بين الكولاجين بندلز بالجراوند سبستانس. هذا هو الجراوند سبستانس، الكميات القليلة الموجودة بين الفايبرز. What is the function of dense irregular connective tissue? The collagen fibers in this tissue form a three-dimensional network, so to provide resistance to stress from different directions. نعرف إنه طبيعة الكولاجين fiber in this tissue arranged in different direction. ترتيب الحزم بعدة اتجاهات، وبالتالي تعطي strength و resistance من كل الجهات. What are the locations of dense irregular connective tissue? The locations are the dermis of the skin, submucosa of the digestive tract, capsule of some organs as liver, spleen, kidney, and lymph nodes. هذه أهم المواقع اللي يتواجد بها الدنس، حيث طبقة الديرمس of the skin تتألف من dense irregular. submucosa، طبقة السبميكوزا بالdigestive tract أيضا هي عبارة عن dense irregular connective tissue. ومعظم الكبسول اللي يحيط الليفر، سبلين، كدني يتألف من dense irregular connective tissue. المجموعة الثانية dense regular connective tissue. This tissue contains of fibers which are densely packed in the same direction and arranged in parallel array to forming structure of great tensile strength. إذا الصفة اللي تشترك بها مجموعة الدنس regular إنه المكون الرئيسي هو الفايبرز على حساب less amount of ground substance, less number of cells. ونلاحظ إنه هذه الفايبر densely packed باتجاه واحد تكون متراصة parallel to each other. This tissue found in structures that subject to tension in one direction and offer great resistance to different forces. طبعا هذا يعطي قوة ومرونة جدا عالية، لكن تكون من اتجاه واحد. Dense regular connective tissue include two types. These are dense regular collagenous connective tissue and dense regular elastic connective tissue اعتمادا على predominant fibers that found in this tissue. يا إما يكون معظمه collagen fibers or elastic fibers. Dense regular collagenous connective tissue. Now, this tissue This consists of collagen fibers, which are densely packed and running in parallel bundles indefinite or one direction. مثل ما نلاحظ هذه هي البندلز كلها عبارة عن كولاجين فايبرز اللي تكون باتجاه واحد بشكل بندلز متوزعة parallel to each other. Between the bundles of collagen fibers, there is very little amount of ground substance. This ground substance containing fibroblasts, which also called tendon cells or tendinocytes, which are spindle in shape or settled, containing elongated nuclei, aligned in row parallel to this collagen bundles. مثل ما نلاحظ بين هذه الكولاجين bundles very little amount of ground substance that containing fibroblasts. These are fibroblasts, which are also called tendon cells or tendinocytes, that arrange in row وأسطر parallel to the collagen bundles. Tendon are the most common example of this tissue. إذن هو التندن هو example على dense regular collagenous connective tissue. نعرف التندن هو عبارة عن elongated cylindrical structure that attach striated muscle to bone. The collagen bundles within tendon is called primary bundles. These are primary bundles. عبارة عن مجموعة من primary bundles. كل وحدة هي عبارة عن collagen bundle. These are aggregate with each other to form larger bundles which called secondary. هذه هي secondary bundles that comprise from primary bundles. The secondary bundles are enveloped by loose connective tissue. هذا هو loose connective tissue اللي يحيط secondary bundles, which is rich for blood vessels and nerve for nutrition of tendon. What is the function of dense regular collagenous connective tissue? This tissue gives great strength with flexibility, and it is give resistance to stretching forces. تعطي قوة ومتانة باتجاه القوة اللي تتعرض إلها from one direction. Dense regular elastic connective tissue. In this tissue containing elastic fiber, which are predominant in this tissue. These fibers are bound together with each other by very small amount of loose connective tissue. إذا نلاحظ هذه هي كلها عبارة عن elastic fibers. بين هذه الإلاستيك موجود اللوز connective tissue اللي يربط الفايبرز مع بعضها حتى يتكون الشكل النهائي للتشو. Between these fibers also found fibroblasts that found in the matrix. الصفة المميزة بالdense regular elastic connective tissue, these fibroblasts these are scattered in distribution. تكون متبعثرة في التشو. هذه صورة أخرى للتشو dense regular elastic connective tissue. مثل ما تلاحظون elastic fibers wavy branch. There is very little amount of ground substance between these fibers. Fibroblasts are scattered in distribution between these fibers. The most common location for this tissue is found between vertebrae and along the dorsal aspect of the neck and the vocal cord. What is the function of dense regular elastic connective tissue? This tissue confers great elasticity and capable of stretching and recoiling in the direction of fiber orientation. يعطي مطاطية عالية جدا بحيث ممكن أنه يتمدد التشو ويرجع إلى وضعه الطبيعي بعد إزالة الفورسز اللي تكون باتجاهها. What is the function of loose connective tissue in the tendon or ligament? this question for you. Specialized connective tissue. هذه المجموعة تضم عدد من الأنسجة. أحد هذه الأنسجة هي Reticular Connective Tissue. This tissue consists of matrix. The matrix containing reticular fibers. These fibers are branched to form extensive network within this tissue. إذا الصفة المميزة برeticular fibers هي تكون طبيعتها branch to form network within the tissue. بين هذه الفايبرز there is very little amount of ground substance. وتكون كمية ground substance very little amount. The predominant cells that found in reticular connective tissue is reticular cells, which have long cytoplasmic process that attached with the neighboring cytoplasmic process of neighboring cells. وإذن نلاحظ هي predominant in the tissue بالإضافة إلى fibroblast and macrophage also found in the matrix of this tissue. What are the locations of reticular connective tissue? Reticular connective tissue forms the architectural framework of the liver, spleen, lymph nodes, and bone marrow. What are the functions of reticular connective tissue? The function of connective tissue is to provide support and to protect and to provide superstructure for the tissues, such as hematopoietic tissues, which is composed mainly of reticular connective tissue. نوع آخر من مجموعة specialized connective tissue اللي هو adipose connective tissue. There are two types of connective tissue, either unilocular or white adipose tissue and multilicular or brown adipose tissue. This tissue composed of large cells, which called adipocyte, also called fat cells, which are basically spherical, but when appear in tissue, it appear polyhedral. إذا لما تكون الأديبوس سيل سنجل تكون spherical typical، لكن لما تكون بالتشو نتيجة إنه تكون متراصة فتظهر بشكل polyhedral. Each adipose cells is composed of single large lipid droplet surrounded by thin rim of cytoplasm. لاحظ هذه هي الليبيد droplet تحاط بكمية قليلة من السيتوبلازم and containing eccentric flatted nucleus. تلاحظون هذه النيوكليوس تكون طرفية في طرف الخلية. The matrix between these cells very little amount. تلاحظون very little amount of the matrix between adipose cells. This matrix containing also fibroblasts. أيضا fibroblasts موجودة بالماتريكس اللي يحيط الأديبوز cells. نلاحظ عادة adipose tissue is divided into loop and lobules. لاحظ أنه يقسم إلى loop و lobules من خلال connective tissue septa of connective tissue اللي يقطع إلى loop و lobules. هذا connective tissue يحمل معه rich blood vessels. وطبعا richness of blood supplies هو indicator for high metabolic activity for the adipose tissue. Tissue is widely distributed in the body. The most common locations of adipose tissue are bone marrow, mesenteries, around the kidney, and subcutaneous layer under the skin. What are the functions of adipose tissue? The function of adipose tissue is storage and metabolic of lipid and to prevent excessive heat loss through the skin. إذا الوظيفة الرئيسية هي storage and metabolic for lipid to regulate the body temperature and also to prevent excessive heat loss through the skin. Multilicular adipose tissue or brown adipose tissue. This type of tissue is common in the first month of postnatal life. في الأشهر الأولى للطفل بعد الولادة. In adult, it is restricted in distribution where it is found around the shoulder girdle. This tissue is rich with the blood supply as compared with white adipose tissue. الصفة المميزة إنه يكون richness with the blood vessels بالمقارنة مع white adipose tissue. This tissue is composed of smaller cells. These cells containing or each cell containing many small lipid droplets. نلاحظ أن الخلية الوحدة تحتوي على عدد من الليبيد دروبلت بالمقارنة مع الوايت adipose tissue اللي يحتوي على large single lipid droplets. This type of adipose tissue is darker than white adipose tissue. The darker color results from the pigment called cytochrome pigment that found in the numerous mitochondria of adipose cells. هذا السبب الأول لوجود صبغة السيتوكروم pigment بخلايا الأديبوز cell in the brown adipose tissue. والسبب الثاني إنه this tissue it is rich with the blood supply يكون غني بالأوعية الدموية as compared with white adipose tissue. What are the functions of brown adipose tissue? This tissue is correlate with the function of heat protection, where it is play important role in regulation of body temperature in newborns. إذا وظيفته الرئيسية هو لإنتاج الحرارة وبالتالي يساهم في تنظيم درجة حرارة حديثي الولادة to protect them against cold. Thank you for listening.